Live. Hi, this is Nancy with On Point TV. I'm going to bring you a few techniques. We're going to call this our summer series, and it's going to be every Wednesday night. We're going to go live on YouTube with different precise techniques and different ways for you to accomplish different parts of quilting. So, for instance, where this all comes from is this quilt. My sister Renee Barth designed this quilt, and she's been teaching it at her quilt shop. So I'm going to hold it up and hide behind it for a second. Everybody says, ooh. So this is a quilt called Tranquil Stars that my sister Renee Barth designed. So here is the pattern. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the pattern. Now the pattern will be available, but right now I'm going through some final editing on it, so it should be available in just a couple of weeks. But I decided that instead of going through block by block on how to make this quilt, is that I would go through the techniques used to make this quilt that not only could you use in this quilt, but then you'd be able to use in all of your quilt making. I'm going to start with the most basic technique, and this is called half square triangles. You'll see them all over the place. Oh, I guess I could have had one here for you to see. Okay, hold on a second. Sorry about that. Okay, this is a half square triangle made from two triangles that end up making a square. All right, you will find it in all the quilts. You'll just see tons and tons of quilts with it. After you even see how I do these different techniques, you'll look at a quilt and you go, oh, there's a half square triangle. But instead of just showing you how to make a half square triangle, I want to show you 5 different techniques for making a half square triangle so that you can pick the one that works best for you. The first thing you need to know about a half square triangle is the math. The math is hard because you have to add 1/8 of an inch. Yes, that's the 1/8. Those little teeny tiny things, they're a pain to add together unless you have a calculator. So here is kind of the basics. So can you see that? All right. A half square triangle, if you want it to finish 2 inches, you need to add 7/8 of an inch to the square. So you would cut a square 2 7/8 inches, and that would create a 2-inch finished half square triangle. So the math gets really tricky when you get down to something like this. So if you want a 2.5 inch finished half square triangle, you need to start with a 3 3/8 inch square. That means that you're doing all of this cutting with this tiny 1/8 of an inch. I want to show you a couple of ways to avoid that in that whole process, all right? So many times you will see instructions that'll say, and I'm assuming this is a 2-inch finished, so everything I'm going to do is going to be based on a 2-inch finished. To take a square, the fabrics, and cut them into 2 7/8 inches. So just so you know, Athena is working on a new piece of equipment we have, so bear with us if things are rocky. This should make things smoother. This is a 2 7/8 inch square. Most instructions will say cut a 2 7/8 inch square, cut that on the diagonal, and then sew a scant 1/4 of an inch to create your 2-inch finished half square triangle. The problem with that, first of all, are these long ears. When you're putting them through your machine, many machines will have a tendency to eat that when you're trying to sew it. Also, this edge is a bias edge. Now, I did spray size this ahead of time, but even with that, see how stretchy it is? A bias edge is very stretchy, and you can easily see how it will distort your half square triangle before you even start. What my preference would be, if I'm just going to cut for one, I just want one, is to cut a 3-inch square, just 1/8 of an inch more. 3 inches is much easier to cut on a ruler anyhow. And then instead of cutting that half square triangle, draw your cut line. That's the first step. Now, depending on your machine, if you have a machine that will give you that perfect scant 1/4 inch seam allowance, you don't have to do this next step, but I'm going to do it just in case, and then I'll show you when we come to my machine. I am going to draw a scant 1/4 inch sewing line. Now it is just less, just one pencil line less than a 1/4 inch. That gives me my scant 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to draw that on both sides of that middle cut line. I'm going to put this in my little stack, and this will be one example of how we're going to do this. I'm going to take the one that I cut, and then this one. We're going to go to my machine, but not quite yet. I've got a few things to show you still, so I'm going to set this to the side. What'd you just do? Did you fix it?
Yep.
Are we still recording? All right, we're still recording. Please excuse the interruption. All right, so a couple of other ways to do half square triangles. One of them is very, very popular, and it's a very good technique, and it's a very good ruler. It is the Easy Angle Ruler from Wrights. Now, what's very cool about this ruler is that with this one ruler, you can make all the way to 4.5 inch finished half square triangles. So that gives you lots of options. I like rulers, I like techniques that give you lots and lots of options. With this, the other reason this is such a cool ruler is for a 2-inch finished half square triangle, you can use jelly rolls. So I've got a couple of jelly rolls. So a couple of things to prepare this. I took this jelly roll. I did not spray size it because it's pre-cut, but I did lay it down right sides together, and I'm going to cut through 4 layers of fabric. So I took my long piece of fabric, right sides together. First thing I need to do is square off the end. So I'm going to use my Easy Right ruler, lining up a horizontal line on the selvage edge here. I'm going to square that up. All right. So now that's nice and straight. Now I'm going to spin this strip around using my Easy Angle ruler. Do you see how on this tip, can you see that? It's cut off. The dog ear is cut off. That dog ear is equal to 3/8 of an inch. That's why you can, using the Easy Angle ruler, just use a 2.5 inch strip. I'm going to rest it so that little blunt end there, that dog ear, is cut off, lining it up on the horizontal line of the ruler at the 2 inch because I want to make a 2-inch finish. I'm going to cut. Now I'm going to take my ruler, spin it around, line it up at the 2 inch, and cut. So you can see how quick and easy it is to cut many, many half square triangles from a 2.5 inch strip. Now I really like this technique, although it's probably not my favorite technique, but advantages: the ruler can do so many different sizes, and in a 2-inch finish in particular, you can make using your jelly rolls, which we all have and love so much. So now I'm going to take these and set these to the side. Yes?
I have a question.
Question.
Just for those out there. Is that ruler a common ruler, or do you have to find it somewhere special?
You probably can find it in most quilt shops. I don't think you should have a problem finding it. The Easy Angle, it's actually been around for quite a few years, made by Wrights, which is actually a simplicity company, but you should not have a problem finding that, and it's rather inexpensive. I don't think it's even $10, so pretty affordable too. Okay. All right, so now we're going to take this and we're going to put this to the side. I will sew these pieces at the sewing machine. Now I'm going to show you another technique for half square triangles. This is called triangles on the roll. All right. The company is called Triangles on a Roll. They actually have a website, trianglesonaroll.com. But again, you probably can find this in most of your quilt shops. You're going to be able to find this. Now the idea of this is this. On this roll of paper, there are 800 half square triangles. You could be making half square triangles till the cows come home with this. And this is the idea. You'll take your piece of paper. In this case, the piece of paper is 6 inches wide. I took my fabric and I cut the fabric at random. I wasn't really super duper precise, but about 7 inches wide and a little bit longer than this 4 or 8 square section would be. Do you see those? I'm going to try and come close. Tell me when to stop. Do you see the arrows?
Yeah.
All right. The cool thing about this is that you don't have to imagine where your scant 1/4 inch is. It's already drawn on. All you have to do is sew on the line. So it really doesn't get any easier than that. There's no math involved. There's no, oh my goodness, do I have a scant 1/4 inch when I'm sewing this? You're just sewing on the line. Couple of tips. The first thing I would do is I would first spray size my fabric, okay? Because spray sizing the fabric is going to keep everything nice and straight. Otherwise, when you're sewing with the paper on top, the fabric can seem to kind of bunch up a little bit on the bottom. The other reason, and I'll show you this when we get to the cutting part, is that you have to tear off that paper. And if there is a downside to this technique, it's that you have to tear off the paper. That will be explained when we come back from the sewing machine. Got another way to show you cuts.
Tina is asking, what is spray sizing?
What? Okay, if you can hold on 1/2 a second, I'll show
Yep.
you. Running over here, running on back. This is spray sizing. So this is very, very popular. I'm going to give you a couple of options, so don't tune out on me yet with this. This is spray sizing. Very popular with quilt makers and quilt shops now. It's from Mary Ellen's, called Mary Ellen's Best Press. Spray sizing is not made with sugar. Spray starch, like the stuff that our grandmothers and mothers have been using to starch our dad's shirts, was spray starch. Spray starch, I believe is still, I might be wrong, but I don't think I am, is made with a sugar base. A sugar base on your quilt won't hurt it at all. If you make a quilt using spray starch to stiffen up your fabrics, it will not hurt your quilt at all. But what if? What if, like millions of quilters around this world, you start a project and then you tuck it away in a box. You put it on a shelf somewhere and you don't finish it in the allotted amount of time. I don't know what that would be because I can't even imagine that happening. What if you put that away in storage and there's sugar on your quilt? Well, the sugar alone is not going to hurt your quilt. But here in Michigan, in our basements where my studio is, bugs love sugar. In Florida, where there's humidity, bugs love sugar. If I ever unpacked a quilt and there was an unfinished quilt and there was a bug on it, I swear to God, I would not be able to quilt anymore. I would be so freaked out by that, I wouldn't be able to quilt. So this is my insurance policy. Spray sizing is not made of sugar. Now, there is spray sizing available in the grocery store. It's going to be about maybe a quarter of the price of Mary Ellen's Best Press. So I'm talking $2.50 a can. Comes in a larger aerosol can. I think there might even be a pump. Magic sizing or Niagara sizing. They really do work very, very good. And before Mary Ellen's came off, that's all I used was Niagara or Magic sizing that my husband would buy for me at the grocery store. It works. But what it also does is when you spray it on, it leaves a little foamy film there. And when you put your iron down on top of it, your iron has a tendency to stick. So when you're using it, if you choose to use it, when you put your iron down, do a little jiggy with it. That'll keep it from sticking. The other thing, I'm trying to talk fast because I want to get to my triangles. The other thing is that it will leave a little bit of residue on your fabric. Not really a big deal. You're gonna wash the quilt when you're done with it. All that residue will be away. Niagara or Magic is not gonna hurt your quilt. It's just a matter of convenience.
Wait.
And if we do, does it just make a cut in the video? Or does it come back on?
Speak.
Technical difficulties? We're having technical difficulties? Bill is watching. I don't know that we have a live.
We might have. I just got sent to that. You're on.
Okay. Am I on?
You're on.
Okay, excuse me very much. Those were technical difficulties because we're using phones to do our recording. So, where was I? Okay, more techniques for cutting half square triangles. This next technique is probably one of my favorite, but the most expensive, hands down. If you're going to do this, you're going to spend a ton of money on the equipment. This is a Big Shot. This is the Big Shot Plus. This is the one that has like an 8-inch space here, so I can cut so many dies. I've done lots of videos with this. You can go back on our YouTube channel, which is onpoint-tv. Look through it. You'll see where I do reviews and I do different things with the Sizzix Big Shot. If you plan on cutting a lot, it's a really cool idea. Or if your cutting isn't really quite as accurate as you think it could be, it's a really great idea. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the machine, set it down. This is a hand crank machine, doesn't need any electricity. And here is my die. So my die is a very, am I in the camera?
Yep.
Okay, it's a long die, and underneath this, you can see these little grooves, all right? Inside that piece of foam is a very, very sharp blade. I can easily cut through 8 layers of fabric with this. With this one, see how long it is? I am just going to cut a metric ton of half square triangles all at one time. I took a full width of fabric. I did spray size my fabric ahead of time, and I lined them up right sides together. Okay. Now I'm going to put my cutting plate on the bottom, put my cutting plate on the top. There we go. And then I'm going to put it in my machine. Can you see that? Or I think it should back up a little bit.
I can see it.
Yeah? All right, because now I'm going to go this way.
Yep.
All right, so now we're going to roll this in. It goes in quite easily. You don't really need to be very strong. Like I said, this is only 4 layers of fabric, so you do not have to have a lot of strength to do this. If you're doing 8 layers of fabric, then you might need to be a little bit stronger. Now I'm going to take and move this to the side. I'm going to put it down here. Hopefully I don't trip on that later. All right. Now I'm going to carefully slide this off, and I do that because I want the half square triangles to stay in place, and sometimes the static will get on this and it'll mess it up. Now I'm going to again carefully kind of peel these back. So this is, and I did start with a 3-inch strip. I'm going to come to the other side. I'm holding them down just because I like them to be nice and even. And since I took the time to press them right sides together, I want them to stay that way. Now look at this. There they are, pre-cut with their dog ears already cut off, right sides together, and I have 2 half square triangles right here. So I could just take and stack these babies all up, and I literally have tons of half square triangles. So I'm going to take and put 2 of these in my pile for us to go to the sewing machine with, and then we have one more technique to show you. Okay. Take this and move it to the side. All right. So remember when we talked about the triangles on the roll? This is the one that had this little graph drawn on it. I'm going to show you how to do that where you honestly don't need to use the triangles on the roll, but I will need to do math. So the advantage to triangles on the roll, no math, pre-done, arrows there, right for you. But this method is, honest to Pete, my favorite method for doing half square triangles. Mainly because it doesn't cost any extra money. You have a ruler, you have a pen. That's all you need to do this technique. So going from very expensive using the Sizzix to the most affordable method for easy half square triangles. So starting with a piece of fabric that's, I don't even know how big this is. About 11 inches by about 12 inches. And I'm going to, I took my fabrics, I put them right sides together. We're having a buzzing sound again.
No, good.
Okay, we're back. Okay. And I spray sized them. So I did stiffen them up a little bit. I did use Mary Ellen's Best Press, but whatever you want to do to stiffen up your fabric. and then I'm going to start to draw that same kind of graph that we saw in the triangles on a roll. I'm going to start with one line. Whoops. And I'm using a permanent marking pen because all the lines I'm going to draw are the cut lines, so I don't need this to come out. I like to use, this is a Micron from, I can't remember who that's from, Sakura. There we go, Micron, permanent, acid-free, India ink, really nice pen. I use it for lots of things. Oops, I'm going to come over here. So now I have a right angle. Would this be a right angle? So I have this part drawn. Okay. The advantage to drawing it yourself, not only does it not cost you any money, but you don't have to do the 2 7/8. I am going to draw this graph with 3-inch squares. Simple, simple math. So whatever, if the calculation tells you that you need to do 2 7/8, bump it up by 1/8. If you're wanting to do 2.5-inch finished half square triangles, instead of cutting 3 3/8, just draw 3 1/2. So with this technique, I get the advantage of doing it on the graph, so it's going to be very fast. You're going to see when I sew this. It's very convenient. I can make it as big as I want. I would not go too much bigger than this though. Like I would not do this with a fat quarter. It would just be too unwieldy. Could you? Sure you could, if you wanted to. All right? So I'm going to proceed to draw my 3-inch squares on my fabric. I think I'm going to get quite a few out of this. So when I've done this, there's lots of different times that I've done this. In particular, I made my son a t-shirt quilt, and I wanted a huge variety of half square triangles. So I did, oh, I don't know, probably 15 kind of sets like this. I'm going to cut this extra off. And it was really nice because then I had this really fabulous selection of half square triangles, and they were all extremely precise, and I'll get to how precise later. So now I've got my squares drawn. Now I have to draw my diagonal cut lines. And I always trying to start on this bottom square going up, then turn my ruler, trying to look over top, so I'm hoping I'm being precise. Come down this way. Oops, I was a little bit off there. Please forgive me. It's very precise if you bring it right next to you. I like doing it with the 3 rows because then it can be very continuous. So now this one goes all the way up to here. All right, so all of them are drawn on, oh, except this one. So I'll draw this one. This is the cut line. If I did not have a machine that I could move the needle to find my scant 1/4 inch, I would then have to do a drawn line also. I'm just going to put little dashes here because I'm not going to need it. My machine can move its needle, but I want you to know that this can be done with any machine. You don't have to have a big fancy machine, but you would draw that line on either side like this is. So you'd have your cut line, drawn line, drawn line, okay? All right, now this is all that I have to do with this. So we're going to go to my sewing machine. I'm going to take the graph that I drew. I'm going to take the ones that I cut with the easy angle ruler. I'm going to take the ones that I cut with my Sizzix Big Shot. I'm going to take the one, now this is what I would do if I were just wanting to make 1 or 2, cut a 3-inch square, going to sew that one. And then we're also going to cut our original one, which is the one that was cut with a 2 7/8 inch square, and I pre-cut the diagonal. So we're going to go, yep, okay, we're going to go to my sewing machine. I'm going to bring a scrap here to use for leader. There. All right, here we go. Don't trip on your machine. Coming over this way. Gonna have a seat. All right. A Dina is going to be careful of my iron because it'll get hot. Move that out of your way. All right. So I'm at my fancy sewing machine. So back up a little bit. I want to show them just a little bit. I did edit the stitch. So this is just a 2.5 stitch like you would normally use. Most machines come up with. But on my machine, I'm able to move my needle to the right and to the left. And on this machine, a 2.8, sometimes I'll go to 3, is the perfect scant 1/4 inch seam allowance for me. So I'm going to start with the leader. So on that leader, I'm going to work with my needle in the down position. So this is the first one. So this is the one that I pre-cut. So now I have to line up that pointy edge just under my foot and then go. Now with the leader, there is not going to be a tendency for the machine to take it down inside, but be very cautious that you're not pulling on this as you're sewing because that's a bias edge, and a bias edge wants to stretch. All right, there's one. So here's the one that I drew, the 3-inch square. Now I actually did draw the sewing lines in this case, but I didn't really need them because my machine can move. Now I got to grab my leader from the back side. So onto my leader. If you are doing a lot of the ones like this, where you're sewing like this, you can chain piece them, but I've only got one, so I needed to stop and start again. I'm gonna sew on the other side. Now it comes to the ones that I cut with my Sizzix Big Shot. Remember, those have the dog ears already cut off on both sides, so I'm just gonna be able to whip right through these. And I can chain piece it right along. The next one is the one that I cut with my Easy Angle out of a jelly roll. I do have the one end that is the dog ears cut off, and then just sew off onto the other long ear. And this one came undone a little bit, so let me get that back up there. And because it's a jelly roll, it does have that pinked edge, and it's gonna be okay. I think it'll be okay, you'll see what I mean. And then this is my last one that I drew the grid on. With this one, I'm going to be able to do a continuous sewn line. I'm going to try and go really fast. Yes, this machine is very powerful. I'm going to stop on that line, spin it around, and go. All right, while I'm sewing, I'm going to comment on my really bright orange nails. I like to imagine that this is Detroit Tiger Orange and that it would help our team win. It's not working. Our team is not winning. We not seem to be able to get a good sports team in all of Michigan. Well, okay, in Detroit anyway. That's just my way of learning all about disappointment. Okay, coming to the other end. So the next time we get together, I'm going to teach you techniques for making flying geese. There's a couple of really cool techniques. And they're all part of the Tranquil Stars quilt pattern. The Tranquil Stars quilt pattern is not available yet. It should be available in the next couple of weeks. So if you keep watching this summer series, you'll have all the techniques you need for making that quilt. So now you see I just turned. Now I'm going on the other side from what I sewed. So it looks very much like what we saw with the triangles on a roll. Oh, gotta make one more stitch. But I'm able to do it without the paper, and I'll explain why that's better when we get, and it's a little bit bigger, so I'm able to trim them down to perfect size. Couple more to go. I also like with this that I'm able to make it this continuous sewing, just one after another, whereas with triangles on a roll, another brand that is out there is called Thangles, Thangles, I think. With that one, same idea, but you're doing them, they're only like a 2.5-inch strip, so you've got to kind of start and stop and start and stop. I'm not a big fan of that one because of the start and stop and because of the paper, but I'll show you why. They are very precise though, So there are many, 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 many people that love the thangles and the triangles on a roll. All right, so this one's done. Now we're gonna back up to my ironing board. Doot, 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 doot. Okay, so here's my little ironing surface here. Got my little wool mat. If you haven't got one of these yet, you might want to think about it. Okay, oh, let me turn it this way. Okay, so we're gonna start with the one that, oh no, here it is. This is the one that I cut the 2 7/8 inch square. I'm gonna first set the seam, then I like to carefully flip it up, hold it down, and press. All right, so that's the one cut from the 2 7/8 inch square. Now I'm gonna do the one that was drawn. Oh, let me get a pair of scissors. Okay, cut off my little leader. This is the one that I cut the 3 inch square, and there is a cut line. Oops, before I cut it, I like to press it. It's just me. You don't have to, it's just me. Now I'm gonna cut on that center line. So I did not have to worry about pressing or sewing with the ears. Now I'm going to flip it up and press that one. I like to give it a little bit of steam there. Okay, now I'm only going to do one of them because we only need one. So this one is slightly bigger. Maybe if I put this one on top. It's that much bigger than the other one, which means it's going to need to be trimmed, which is what I love because then it's precise. This is the one that I used cutting with the Sizzix Big Shot that has the dog ears blunted on both sides. This one is supposed to be precise, so I should not have to trim it, but we'll see in our experiment. All right, not going to do that one. This is the one that I cut with the easy angle using the jelly roll, and you can tell that because the one blunt end and the pinked edges. There. And then this is the one that I did the grid on. So I'm going to press this whole thing, then we're going to go back up to my table and we're going to cut this. Now remember, this was cut from the 3 inch squares, so the trimming of it will be the same as that other one that I did. All right, so now it's nice and flat. We're going to go up to my table. Okay, here we go. You there? Hello. Yep. Okay. Oh no, she saw the mess. I couldn't hide it any longer. All right, so we're going to finish up this one. Then I'm going to take you through the precision. Oh, where are you?
There we go.
Hello.
Give me a second.
Hi. Welcome back. So this one is all trimmed. I'm sorry, all sewn, all pressed. Now I'm going to trim it. And I like to kind of make this a little game when I'm trimming it. You're going to cut on the drawn solid lines. I'm kind of reaching over, so I'm not super sure if that's accurate. All the way around the edges. Now this does, in the defense of people that like to just cut the perfect size, this does technically waste a little bit of fabric. I'm just not worried about that. I am more concerned with precision than I am with wasting a little bit of fabric. Right, so this is where I like to be real careful and not move my fabric. So as I'm cutting it, I'm trying my best to not move it. Then we'll go this way. Now I do have a mat that's one of those spinning mats. Honest to Pete, until I was actually doing this, I forgot about that. If I do this again, I will remember to bring out my spinning mat. So I try to keep them all together. So then, when I'm cutting my diagonals, I can cut more than one block at a time. So it's just a little bit of, I don't know, I just think it's fun. Is that silly? Let's say no. Okay. And then one more. So now I have 24 half square triangles, all done. Keeping in mind, I did these with a 3-inch square, so now I would take these and press them open, generally to the dark side, but you never know, okay? So I'm going to put these all away to the side, and we're going to go back to the ones that we sewed and pressed with those different sizes and techniques, so we can see which one turned out the best and how to make them better, okay? So let's start with the first one that we made. The first one that we made is the one that I cut the 2 7/8 inch square with using my square ruler. I'm going to lay it down and we're going to see what size it is. This should measure 2.5 inches right now. It actually does. I think I did pretty good. So this is the one that I cut 2 7/8 inches. It is really pretty darn precise. I don't know that I could ask for any better. I do want to cut off that dog ear, spin it around, line it up at 2.5 inches, always being cautious to line it up with your diagonal of your square ruler. There we go. Very, very precise half square triangle. Now, okay, come up here a second. I want to give a little bit of I guess a testimonial. I made this cutting a 2 7/8 inch square. I started by spray sizing it. I sewed a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. I am a professional. I just want to say that. I've been doing this for, I'm nigh on 30 years, all right? So I hope I can do this and make it this precise. I want you to test it. See if yours are. Are yours this precise? Not that you got to give up. Heavens to Betsy. There's so much to learn, so much to do. Maybe you're making them this precise already, and the rest of it you can just say, yep, Nancy, I don't need any more of your help. I'm all good. Go. That's fine too. Let's see how our other ones turned out, and I'm going to show you what you can do if yours did not turn out exactly 2.5 inches. This is the one that I cut with a 3-inch square. Let's measure this one. Coming down. Now this one should measure a 1/4 inch or so bigger. Laying it down there. No, about 1/8 of an inch or so, actually. So here it is. It's 2 5/8 inches. I love that because now I can square it up to perfect. Always being very cautious to have the diagonal line of your ruler running right on the seam allowance. Then you cut off the side and the top, then spin it around, and just like the other one, tuck it in to 2.5 inches and trim it off. That is just about as perfect as you can get. Perfect 2.5 inches right now. When it's sewed around, it'll be a 2-inch finish. Now let's go to the other ones that we did. This one is the one that I cut using the Sizzix with my scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. It's a little bit small. In all truth, it's a little bit small, maybe a 1/16 of an inch. So not as precise as I would want it to be. My seam allowance is a little bigger than I think it should have been, although it worked on the other one. Okay, this is the one that I cut using the easy angle. Let's line that up to 2.5 inches. That one's a little bit big, so that's kind of cool. So now I'm going to show you another way to trim this. So this is the trimming that we normally do, where you line up that diagonal line on the seam that you've just sewn and pressed, all right? Here's another little tool. This is called, let me see if we can put this on here so you can, ooh, perfect. This is called a block lock ruler. They spell it a little bit funny, BLOC-LOC. You can find these at many quilt shops. You're going to be able to find them on their website too, which is probably www.blocklock, without the dash, blocklock.com. This one's really cool because it can do up to 6 inches. So you can be squaring up, and I'm going to show you what I mean, squaring up all the way to a 6.5 inch square, half square triangle, so it would finish 6 inches. What makes this unique is this little groove here in the middle. There's literally a groove right there that is going to really make it more precise than just the ruler. This is how it works. When you put the ruler down, you have to line up that diagonal line as perfectly as you can. And there's a little bit of a, you see this? Where it rocks a little bit? No, it's not huge, but that's because of the seam under there. With the block lock ruler, that little groove goes over the seam. It automatically is going to line up right on the seam, and there's no rocking because the little groove in the bottom is encasing the seam. So it's just resting inside there. After you cut one side, this is really tricky. You slide this, not tricky bad, tricky fun. Slide this to the other side, spin it around. Now I can tuck it right into 2.5, and I didn't actually need to, but I could trim off the other side, right? So then you get the super precise 2.5 inch square. So this is using the block lock rulers. You know how I said the Scant-A-Cut, I'm sorry, that the Sizzix Big Shot's expensive? These are a little bit pricey, but they're pricey for a reason. They took a lot of time and effort designing this and getting it just right. It is really very cool. If you're doing a lot of half square triangles and they all need to be trimmed, this is one tool that will really help you in the process. So maybe you can go into a quilt shop and say, hey, do you have a block lock ruler? I want to see. I saw this lady, Nancy, on Point TV, and she was using it, said it was really cool, but she also said it's kind of pricey. And I'm talking, I think this was like 25, 30 bucks, something like that. So a little bit pricey. So it's for you to decide. So there you have it. I showed you a few different techniques for making half square triangles. Give them a try. Give them all a try. Wouldn't that be fun? You can give them a try. See which one is your favorite. The pattern again is Tranquil Stars. It's not ready right this second. So this is the last Wednesday in May. Up. Last Wednesday in May. It's not on the website yet, but it should be soon. The website is onpoint-tv.com. That's where you can find my Learning to Quilt book. That's where I didn't wear my pincushion. That's where you can find my pincushion if you're needing a nice big pincushion. Our YouTube channel is onpoint-tv. You can go there. I think this might be our 200th video. There's a lot of videos out there. Athena says, yay. There's a lot of videos all in a lot of different quilting techniques. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd appreciate a thumbs up. Comments are always nice if they're nice. And if you have any questions, you can leave it on the YouTube channel and I will answer it there. But sometimes if it's a longer question and you need to include pictures, it might be easier if you email me. My email is quiltingwithnancy.com. There you go. Half square triangles. Oh, a couple questions. Bill says, okay.
There's one, what's your favorite technique?
What's my favorite technique? The one where I drew the triangles is my favorite technique if I want to get a whole bunch done at once. Okay? That it?
I think there's another one, but Gina just answered it.
Oh, okay. Gina answered the other question. All right. Thank you all.